The general public are very generous to this museum in terms of donations. We're given some wonderful things, but just once in a while something comes up that is absolutely exceptional, something that really does make you, pause and think that's quite amazing. And the group of objects I've got in front of me are just that sort of thing. Now, it revolves around a chap called Reuben Hansford, and we have his medal group, and this is the First World War we're talking about. So we have the 1914-15 Star, the British War Medal and the Victory Medal. We also, unfortunately, have this object. This is the memorial plaque, the bronze plaque, which is sometimes slightly unkindly known as the dead man's penny. So this was sent to the families of men who did not survive the war. Reuben Hansford, though, this is extraordinary, because we not only have his medals and his plaque, we have got a huge mass of information, a personal archive relating to one young man and his service in the Queen's own Dorset Yeomanry at the start of the First World War. Reuben Hansford, quite typically, was a Dorset country lad, grew up on a farm, Foxholes Farm in Little Breedy, not far from here, and the Hansford family had had the farm for some years. It hadn't been an easy life. Foxholes is not an amazingly good farm, and also both parents had died, and that left Reuben with his big sister Lucy to run the farm. Now there's a photograph of Reuben and Lucy, and at that point Reuben can only have been about 2 years old, typical of the period, practically dressed as a little girl in a sort of almost like a sort of smock frock. And then there we have a later photograph of Reuben having volunteered for the Queen's Own Dorset Yeomanry in 1914, and there he is, the young yeoman, aged at this point probably not quite 18 years old, and on his way to war. Now, Reubens War was very short. As a Dorset yeoman, he would have expected to go to France to fight the immediate enemy, the German army. Instead, he went somewhere that he can really not have ever imagined ever going. The Dorset Yeomanry was sent to Gallipoli, Turkey, and they arrived there in August 1915. The Dorset Yeomanry landed on the Gallipoli Peninsula, a place called Suvla Bay, on the 18th of August. On the 21st, 2nd Mounted Brigade, which is what they were part of, were detailed to attack somewhere called Scimitar Hill. And that was a fortified Turkish position. The Turks had had lots of time to dig in. They advanced into machine gun and artillery fire, and they suffered horrific casualties. The entire brigade staff, including the Brigadier General Lord Longford, were killed. Reuben suffered a similar fate, I'm afraid. In the advance on Scimitar Hill, he was shot through the legs, and he was evacuated, but his wound was so severe that with the relatively primitive medical care of those days, he died on board a hospital ship off the Turkish coast, and he was buried at sea. He has no known grave, so he's commemorated along with a large number of other Dorset yeomen on the Hellers Memorial, right down on the tip of the Gallipoli Peninsula. That's a really tragic story. Reuben is only about, just over 18 years old, not much of a life, but he died for his country along with his friends, his comrades in the Dorset Yeomanry on Gallipoli. But we have more. We have letters. We've got a huge number of letters, all the letters that he wrote home to Lucy, because of course she'd been left to look after the farm. And they are typical. He's writing from the YMCA before he went abroad in Wantage to start with, thanking her for sending him things that he needed, inquiring about the farm. There's one telling little remark, which is, oh, I'm glad to see that H has done the right thing. We shan't have to show him the white feather. That's very much a spirit of the times sort of thing. We have this extraordinary personal archive written by Reuben from the time when he was trading back in England, right the way through to the point where he embarks for Gallipoli itself. We've even got things like, this is his birth certificate. Reuben Henry Hansford, 16th July 1896, registered at Maiden Newton. And then to finish it off, and the thing that really does sort of bring it all home, is we actually have his school books. Now, education in those days was fairly primitive. It was the village school, and you probably stayed there till you were about 14, and then went off to make your way in the world. And we've got Reuben's recitation books, his drawing book, and he was actually quite a good artist. Very much rural scenes. There's a foxhound, something he'd been very familiar with when the hunt came through. And then the thing that really does stick out is this, which is his geography book, mapping book. Now, geography in those days, no DVDs and things like that, no going on the internet. It meant sitting down and copying maps. And these things had to be done very smartly. And we have a whole series of maps. Here's Norway, Sweden, Denmark and the Baltic Sea. But then we have Balkan Peninsula, Turkey, Greece, Bulgaria. And he's actually labelled the Gallipoli Peninsula, a place that he could never have heard of before and would never have dreamed of going to, much less what would happen to him and his comrades on that blood-soaked stretch of land.